Welcome. It's time for lockdown hobby time. It's at the corner of your screen, so prepare yourselves because it's quite bright looking today. Quite tear as well. It's a bit of a rare treat, isn't it? So we've got Steve and Bazooka in the chat already. And today it's kind of an empty feeling. Finished the dwarf that I was working on, and at some point look at the Helvane intimate detail. But first, we've got Night Stalkers out, who are obviously next on the chopping block, and these guys are the butchers. See, there's not any paint on them at all yet, obviously, but just to give you another insight into the painting process, then the pre-painting steps with them. They're already assembled, already had their crevices filled in with some putty, so they have their mould lines removed as well. All that remains is to attach them to something that I can hold while painting. So the choices are, do I invest in 5 Citadel paint handles for an obscene price? No. So what we're going to do instead is drop things on the floor and get 5 full paint mixing pots. So there's one of the things I use. The other would be, let's see, got 5 cork coins stuck to them to weigh them down a bit. So depending on the model in question, will determine whether it's going to fit on one of these things. Are the feet too far apart to fit on there? Probably. So I don't think that's going to work. I don't want to just attach it by 1 foot, unless I drill 2 holes in the same foot, because it would just spin round. So feet quite far apart. Looks like we're going to have to probably, we're going to have to go for these bad boys instead. So get rid of the corks. And obviously the holes need to be in the right place. Sometimes you get really lucky, and the last model that was on there had exactly the same spacing. Let's just drop my seat down a bit. There we go. So, but the first, they're actually not too far off the holes on this one. Sometimes you can find one that's perfect. Did previously. I don't think this one's going to be that. So, for that though, is get out this nice 1mm wire. That's going to be put into the holes that have already been drilled out in their feet. Just to make sure it goes in there nice and smooth. I've already drilled out the holes with an electric drill, but we're just going to get this little bad boy in there as well, just to make sure it's going to be a smooth passage. Wire. Something there, but structure going in. Because the wire, if it's not a smooth entry, it will bend. Very annoying. On that. I'm sure people are looking forward greatly to the paint on some of these stalkers. See, I've done 2 already, I haven't done their bases yet. The butchers are one of the first units that I'm going to be outside of those 2 that completed, and of course the Shadow Hulk as well, who's going to be worked on alongside these next. So however long it takes, I don't think the butchers will take that long. However, their base might, since I haven't really settled 100% on how the bases are going to be done yet. Everyone else working on today. Exciting. So we're going to super glue a bit of this wire into the crevices that are on the underside of their feet. But before I put the glue in, I'm just going to make sure that the wire actually gets in. It's going to be nice and secure in there when the super glue's in as well. So, super glue. Have this guy first. Just going to do 1 ball at a time. I'm not going to cut off the piece of wire yet because it's easier to jab it in when more attached to it. Then I'm just going to clip off. Leave a healthy bit sticking out so it's got somewhere to go when you push it inside one of these things. Obviously, the more you push it in, the more wire you're going to use, but it's not exactly expensive. But anything that's big, any kind of big models, they do like this. And I also did it for pretty much all my Ibis and Dwarf, well, even obviously they're big. But I knew I was going to be pushing them down into cork, so pins on going for a different kind of facing, then pins might want to. It's doing exercise. Good. Got to keep up with the fitness levels during these turbulent times. So when I've stuck these down, I'm going to bring up a slideshow with all my Dwarf army. Still got them out on the table from, but I think they look quite nice in all their full glory alongside each other. Whether I'd be able to field them all at once in any one game seems a bit far-fetched. About 4 zillion points there. It's a big griddly. Stops going very well there. Wipe the super glue off. Okay, that should do it. Let's get that stuck in quick while it's still glue on it. Monley has left. The Warhammer Thin Times, when you got to play Kings of War, have you ever looked back? Have I ever looked back at Warhammer Fantasy since getting into Kings of War heavily? Not really. Played any kind of Warhammer Fantasy really. Maybe a tiny game here and there, but not for a good few years now. I haven't really felt the need to. Obviously the world is something that people miss, but I don't think the game rules, outside of the weird and funny aspects of the rules, like giants having for stuffing people into their pants and things like that, I don't miss a lot about the actual game. Everything that I wanted out of it I can get in Kings of War. In fact, I can get more out of it, more accessible. And the community seems to be a bit friendlier as well. There are obviously exceptions. But even just the atmosphere of people playing the game, better. I'm not even sure whether that's my opinion. Just put that down as fact. Based on my tournament experience anyway, I only went to one Warhammer Fantasy tournament in America. So it could be that American tournaments have a terrible player atmosphere. Play Vanguard, and if so, I do occasionally play Vanguard. I don't think it's that great, but it is the first edition. And if you look at the difference between Dead Zone first and second edition, quite significant. I'd imagine Vanguard will be better. A lot of rules in there, like there were with the first edition of Dead Zone, that strike me a bit odd. Shouldn't be there. There's a couple of things that I think could streamline. The way models die in Vanguard, for example. The tougher things to take out, rather than having the strange mechanic where you put them down and then have to finish them off. I think actually having more wounds on those models is better. I think it's needlessly complicated. God. Feels like there's something in my eye, right? Probably a tiny piece of plastic. Safety goggles are wimps. So let's see the holes now. Try to use the existing holes that's already in there. Foot. Then the other foot needs to have a hole there. So I'm just going to drill through there. It's going to sit happily in there now. And it's weighed down with a coin inside as well, so it's going to be over. Undone. Super glue now. It's going to be a real treat for anyone who's wanted to see my hair dry in real time. Oh. So I'll probably start painting these properly tomorrow. Bit of a prime. Later on, or perhaps. Yeah. Down a bit too hard. Next. Typically, I'll play in a Vanguard event if it's part of something else. There's a Vanguard tournament that's also attached to a whole weekend of games as well. I'm more likely to participate in that, rather than just a one-off Vanguard. Just need that much. I don't think it's as fun as Dead Zone. Dead Zone is kind of my fun, not necessarily that competitive. I care more about winning in Kings of War than I do in Dead Zone. Even though I have an equal number of tournament wins for both. I think it's more difficult. Not only because also I think the way people approach Kings of War tournaments is possibly a bit more serious, not just me. Well, that makes it more difficult. Dead Zone is more of a fun cinematic type game, I think. Okay, one more. So I don't think this one has any. I've got a different one that does. Yep. Ooh, and it's actually going to reach. I need to drill any more holes in this one. Matched up with holes perfectly. So they're ready to be sprayed now. 5 of them. I'm not planning out the basing for them just yet because since I haven't done that much digging into the Night Stalkers, because I've been more on the Abyssal Dwarves, then I have to decide whether to base them in 3s so that I can run regiments, or whether I want to base them as 5s or board base, which would take less models, obviously, but it means I can't then run them as regiments. So I'd like to find out whether people in the Night Stalker community actually rate regiments of butchers. It's all about the hordes before I always do some of each. One horde first of all with 5, and then next time certainly be an option. So let's put that aside for now. Getting ready to be primed at a later time. And I'm going to prepare a little slideshow for. So look at my Abyssal Dwarf army. It's complete for now. I'm sure I will add more to it in the future. Okay, here's the slideshow. So this is the Elfane, in case anyone hasn't seen it. And I'm very pleased with it, but there is one thing I might consider changing. I would like some audience feedback. So from this angle, but there is one angle that I think maybe something should be changed. I'll let you know when we get to it. Again, very tasty from there. There. So if you haven't seen these pictures before, that means you're obviously not keeping my Facebook group. 6. Might be my favourite picture. His face looks free. These guys, well. See, now, this is the kind of picture where I'm thinking, because the 2 angles you're going to see it from most when you play against my army. You're going to see it from the front or above, more often than. So, is there too much gold in the middle from above? I'm thinking, let me bring up Mr. Arrow here, try and show you where. So, this circle around his feet here, does this top platform right there want to be silver instead? Like dark silver like this? Because that would just break up all this big area of gold, which is also shared by their armour. And it wouldn't take long to do, it would be very, very fast, in fact, go in and change that to silver. Would that help? Because again, from this angle, you can see it's very, very gold all inside there. And just this circle here, changing that to silver, would that make a big difference, do you think? Because when I'm painting it, I'm not looking at it that much directly from above. So it's only when I put it out on the table that I'm thinking maybe it's a big solid lump of. Like from there it looks fine. The army shot, the crew, the guy on top kind of blends into the rest of it. That circle there is the same colour as his. Should I change that to a dark silver with lighter silver highlight? Try and bring the Overmaster a bit, stand out more on top of that silver circle. there's, I think, colour like blue, white, red, or purple. They've only got orange on them at the moment. But the idea with this thing was try and make it as gold as possible, and as much gold as I can get away with. I want it to look like this really extravagant, expensive thing that they've put so many resources into this that it's just a ton of gold. It's big. I like the amount of gold, so what I did to try and minimise how blocky that all was, silver highlights shine on it. Certain areas have been picked out different as well, but I think just there, I think that could be enough to just fix the entire problem as I see it. Just turn that circle there silver. But I don't want to stray too much from the gold or add more colours to it. That whole army laid out there. Grotesques. And there. Yeah, it would be a very quick thing to fix. To be silver, Nuln Oil, probably Nuln Oil twice, but maybe with the highlight of silver done between Nuln Oiling. That would be it. I think just that circle, considering going back in and... There's the full army anyway. Got a couple of people saying yes to the silver. I think it's something you don't see until you've actually got it out on the table. Tried to lay everything out nicely. Don't know if the tournament would ever run a point level facility. Brian says could use more orange. Well, I think there's plenty of orange in. Got some armies that are 100% orange. This is certainly not. Obviously, the most prominent bits of orange from the half-breed there. Crystals on the Greater Obsidian Golem, the base crystals, shields on the Immortal Guard. Some other ones here. So yeah, I think just that silver there just looks like a big solid gold brick at a distance. Raphael says your army looks certainly a lot of time has gone. As the above view. Yeah, you can definitely see now how solid the silver, how solid the gold is there. Now just that one bit of silver would change the way it looks. Yes, it is lava cap. Up action now. I'm going to post up all these pictures on the War Fanatics group link. Or I might fix the Hellbane silver. If I likes the consistency in the army, well, that's definitely something I've gone for. So if I get enough people telling me this is the right choice, because we have got some very good painters chat there, do you think I could just go in and do this now, this silver? Just this circle that he's standing on and the outside of this circle. Only the top of it, not the lower parts, just the top. Same colour as these back plates here. Get enough people saying that's definitely the way to go, then I will go and bring it over and do that. War machines. Mortal Guard were the first that I painted. Nice cinematic shots here, let's get rid of it. Interesting to see what the camera chooses to focus on. Here it looks like it's focused on either Susan or the half-breeds. Here it's just focused on that one guy at the front. Like that shot. So, Bazooka says the base will stand out, but the dwarf still blends into the gold. Raphael says it to be silver, dark could be dark steel, breaking the gold would be here. So the colour would be this colour here at the back. Silver, but with a couple of coats of Nuln Oil on it, so it's very dark. And then the silver highlight is applied between the coats of Nuln. So it's darkened down a little bit, but not as much as the whole thing. So that would be this ring here. That would fix the issue of when you above it just looks like a solid gold. I don't mind the fact that he is the same colour as the rest of it, because it's consistent across the army. I think from the sides, they stand out enough, I would say. But these two crewmen have less gold on them, orange. I wouldn't even need to take him off because it's very clean. His feet are stuck down. Silver. So I will go and get the Helfane, and then I will silver up that little bit of the platform. See if it's sure I've got it. I don't need it to have perfect contrast. I don't need the guy standing on it to stand out that much against the backdrop. But just from above, it was looking too much. So I'm going to go and pick it up off the table right now. Okay. Have I been quiet at all so far? I think I've got it on the microphone that's slightly further away. Let me just try. Okay, is that louder? It should be. But my audience have a terrible habit of not letting me know if I'm quiet until like 10 minutes before the end of the video. So, okay, good. Okay, let's go back, get rid of that. Right. Helfane. We thought we were done with you, but once I got you out on the table, decided something needs fixing. So let's get the wet palette out. And it looks like some silver is still wet on here, which is nice. Raphael says, if you can paint fire orange pentagram on the base, that would also be nice. I'm sure it would, but that sounds a bit too advanced for my liking. And with the guy already standing on it, I think I would make a mess of that. So let's just try this for now. We want a decently pointed brush because we are going around his feet carefully, so let's try this one. Is this silver going to be usable after a few days? Looks like it. It might take more than one coat to get good coverage here since it's over the top of the gold. So here we go. Sacrilege, painting a miniature that's already had pictures of it taken. It's already been varnished, so I'm not concerned about damaging it by holding it at this stage. Is this live or was it pre-recorded a week earlier when you had shorter beard than in last battle report? What? I don't understand what you mean. It's been a while since I've had any pre-recorded video content on this channel. Very carefully going around the edge because I would rather not have to correct anything on this. Just want to get it right the first time, preferably. So just to give you a general idea. Let's see. So obviously it's going to be much darker than that, but you can see how it totally breaks up all that big area of gold. And hopefully it'll be enough on its own. And then of course I'll have to take pictures of it all over again. Very careful. Was it hard to play the last battle report, Bissell Dwarves vs Undead? Will you do more? It was not difficult at all, and I will definitely be doing more of those battle reports from webcam games. Got a couple of volunteers already lined up, ready to roll for the next games. Should I say volunteers or sacrifices? Volunteers or victims, yeah. I'm going to get a bit more silver out here. Where's this one? I think that one's a bit empty. Where's the new one? There we go. My Vallejo paint rack hasn't arrived yet. So that's going to be fun. when it arrives, obviously. It's not much fun until then. Brian says the reports are great. Yeah, I try to offer plenty of tactical insight to my battle reports. Even if it's tactics that people might already use or concepts that they're already familiar with. That's not going to be the case for everyone, so there are going to be people out there that pick up on things based on watching other people discuss them. Brian says it's fun to follow my journey tactically and painting. Good. I hope it is fun for people, because then they'll keep watching it. Trying to very carefully get around the edges without touching any of the parts that are staying gold. Very tricky. Okay, so I'll leave that to dry for a bit, and then I'll go in and add some more. Raphael says, is lockdown at your place still the same, or have they started to unfreeze companies and let people work? For now, everything's the same. But I imagine it won't be long until they start easing back on some of the restrictions, even if it's not safe to do so. Because I'm sure there are some pretty impatient people who aren't raking in as many millions or billions as they usually do. Will be gently applying pressure to various governments to get things rolling a bit faster so that they can get back to raking in the cash. I think here we're expecting some kind of announcement in a couple of days regarding whether there's going to be any easing of the lockdown restrictions. We've got Graham in the chat now. Good evening. So for anyone that missed the start, we decided to go back and add to the Hellfane and turn the platform that the guy is standing on silver, just to try and make a bit more of a variety on top there rather than just a big blob of gold, which is what it kind of looks like from certain angles. So just on the first coat of that, I'm going to let that sit for a minute until it's nice and dry, and then I'm going to add a bit more. Brian says, New York is still on lockdown, most affected place in the world. I'm not surprised. Does New York presumably have an extremely highly dense population? Especially the kind of the city part of it, where presumably lots of people would live in apartments rather than houses. In areas where everyone has a decent sized house and maybe a small amount of land to roam on around it. Places like that, I imagine it's a lot easier to be in lockdown. So, what else have I got lined up for this week? Well, there's the Andean Room Show, obviously, on Tuesday, which I'm sure everyone is looking forward to, as usual. I'm going to have to talk to Mr. Remington and see if he wants to get in some Vermintide as well soon, which, of course, will be fun for all. And more painting. The butchers, which I just put on these bases earlier, I'm going to prime them in time for tomorrow, most likely, and they can get out onto the paint station rapidly. And it shouldn't take me too long to do them. It's going to be a lot of washes and dry brushing involved in all my Night Stalkers, I think. As you saw from the Dread Fiends, which are currently just sitting, waiting for some bases. Quite a simple colour scheme, but hopefully effective. There's that one. And of course, his twin. If I do the whole army in that style, it should be pretty fast to paint, in theory. I don't need everything to be as ridiculously intricate as the Abyssal Dwarves have been. So Raphael says, any thoughts on the Grotesques and their champion after last game? Will you go for a second Horde? Well, I think they're good. They're obviously a competitive choice, maybe not necessarily the champion. I think the fact that he doesn't inspire anybody makes him not necessarily as good a choice as the half-breed champion. Of course, you have to weigh up the fact one of them is an individual, so he can charge anywhere, and one of them has the opportunity to get into flanks and rears and multiply the attacks. So those two things kind of balance out, I think, overall. Their stats, apart from that, are very, very similar. But the half-breed champion has inspiring for any abomination units, so all half-breeds and grotesques he can inspire. So I'm not sure about the grotesque champion in the competitive sense, but I would still like him to be in the army, just I think he looks cool. Would I go for a second horde? That's financially dependent on finances, probably. Because I think running several hordes of grotesques is a nice competitive option. Running maybe even up to 4 of them would probably be pretty solid if you ask me. But would I want to spend that much money and time on more grotesques when I've already got a full army? Who knows? I've got 1 grotesque left over from the unit, and I'm not sure about turning him into a second champion because I don't know if that's necessary, having 2 grotesque champions. So I'd rather consider adding him to another unit. But the problem is they come in packs of 3. So if I added him in there, that would make 4. And I would like to have 5 if I was going to make another horde. So if I could get my hands on 1 spare grotesque, then I could buy 1 regiment, and I could possibly do it then. That's the most likely path to me getting another grotesque horde. I don't think I'd want to buy 2 regiments of them when I don't need them because I've already got more than enough of an army to go on the table. I'd rather put that money into a new army project. If I start finding that grotesques are just wiping the floor with everybody in my games, then I might reconsider that. So, that silver looks like it's dried up nicely. It does dry very fast, these metallic colours. So let's start applying a bit more on there. Because I'm holding it by the model now, I'm just having to make sure there's no paint on my fingers. So obviously that would be terrible. I'm trying to avoid using the fingertips where possible. Brian says 1 is plenty to hit on 4s. Yeah, you don't want to fill the whole battlefield with something that hits on 4s, usually, because people will be able to get most of your army hindered at some point if they want to, which makes them much less hitty, because they're quite reliant on their thunderous charge. I'm not usually one for going back to a model and adding to it after it's already been finished, but with this, I think it's going to make a big difference. And it's not something that occurred to me as I was painting it, because the crew weren't attached for a start, and then the angles I was looking at it from weren't necessarily the angles my opponent would see in a game, which may be the most important one. So once it was on the table, I thought, you know what, that's a bit too much solid gold there. Need to break that up a bit. Plus golems are fantastic. Yes, they are. Competitive lists of mine with 2 golem hordes and an ironcaster have done very well. Even though you're paying that extra tax for an ironcaster, who essentially does nothing but boost them. Unless you pay more to make him dangerous in his own right. Okay, I think this should be the last coat of silver now because the coverage has been quite good. After this is dry, it's going to be Nuln Oil. Then a highlight of the silver again on the edges. Then Nuln Oil again. Give him Shroud, Heal 6+, Defense 6. Yep, the Shroud is certainly an option on the Ironcaster. So there's a teensy bit of silver that's strayed onto the gold there. So before I do the Nuln Oil, I think I'm going to fix that. And there's actually still some wet gold on the palette here, even though it's been a few days since I used it, because this wet palette is good stuff. So let's soap down this brush, because I don't think I'm going to be needing this one again. My hair's going crazy because it's drying. And it's too hot to wear a hat, which usually keeps it in shape. Ryan thinks Grotesques are the best horde, high nerve plus regen. Yep, they are very tough to take out. And a horde seems to be a much better choice. Whenever you've got regeneration, typically I think you would want a horde, because a regiment much more likely to die in the first round of hits and not get to use its regeneration. And I think I need to sneeze in a second. Okay, it was just one sneeze. Brush. Tiny little brush now, and just touch up that teensy bit gold that has a bit of unfortunate silver on it. Darkest. This one. Okay. And when all that is dry, fully, all the oil over the silver platform, then edge highlight around the edge of it, obviously. Maybe touch the little bumps in it. Then another layer of Nuln Oil. It'll be nice and dark, but the highlights should still be visible. I may even do it the same as I did on the back, which I think was 2 layers of Nuln Oil, then the highlight, then a 3rd layer of Nuln. It's nice and dark, but it does have strongish highlights. I think that's going to be the fun there. Don't want to touch it with my fingertips in case there's paint on them. As long as this one. yes, not going to be doing this for much longer. Tomorrow it's going to be a much busier painting episode because of those butchers primed. Yeah, really. That's going to be an exciting time all round. I'll be back in 1 moment. Okay. So I thought there was going to be another sneeze then, but there wasn't. Now, I may have accidentally used the wrong microphone a minute ago. I can't remember which one I unmuted, because I've got the good microphone, which I'll use when playing games or doing live like discussion shows, which I sit right in front of me here. But obviously when I'm painting, it sits on top of the desk, which is up there, which is up there somewhere. And then when I'm doing the painting, I'll use this camera right here as the microphone, but they're both there, so I've given them different names, and I'll mute and unmute each one depending which one I want to use. Which makes it more complicated is that when I'm doing a video call, for example, for the Andy and Rem show, then I'll have to set a different microphone and sometimes a different webcam for that application at the same time. And if I have those programs, those devices active in the streaming software, then other things sometimes can't see them. It's very complicated, I know. Just something to keep one's eye on. Brian, are you starting a Night Stalker on me? Yes. I've already started it, in fact, if you haven't seen these guys before. The Dread Fiends. They're the only things that are finished, and they don't have any bases yet because I haven't finalised a base design for them. They're complete. We've also got the Shadow Hulk here as well. You might be able to see it better on this camera. Let's enlarge this camera. There you go, there's the Shadow Hulk. Obviously the paintwork's been started on it, but lots more to do. It's a very complicated creature. Hopefully it's going to look super cool when it's finished. Tentacles everywhere, a weird mutant dragon hand with arms coming out of it, faces all over his front, side and back, tentacles coming out all over the place. It's going to be fun times when that thing's finished. I'm not going to go too crazy with the actual paint on the Night Stalkers. It's not going to be outrageously detailed. It's going to be mostly about the conversions on some of the models and just the nice pinky purpley colour scheme rather than ridiculous level of detail, I think. Because there are going to be a lot of models to paint. More than the Abyssal Dwarves, most likely. A lot of scarecrows, perhaps. So, I'm going to stop this broadcast in a minute, and this guy is just going to sit here until that silver is fully dry and I'm happy with it. And then I'm going to put some Nuln Oil on it. I'll probably continue with it later on. I'll just, when I'm in the middle of doing something else, just take a quick 5 minutes and slap the Nuln Oil on. Ryan says, I played Night Stalkers at the US Masters, can't wait to see the bat reps. Yeah, it's going to be juicy and exciting, and if lockdown still isn't over when the Night Stalkers are ready, then I'll just have to play them in webcam games. But I imagine they'll be lifting of the restrictions heavily by the time I've got an army finished. I've only got 2 models done so far, and it does take me a long time to paint anything, as you can see by this series. where overall it took me almost a month to do the Grotesques, the Grotesque Champion and the Hellvane, with a few days off for working on other things in between. But I don't paint very fast. I can't paint for a huge amount of time in a row, generally. I can't just sit here for 6 hours and just churn out an army like some people can. I need breaks. But this is a very long stretch of hobby for me. Normally, I don't paint this many days back to back to back to back. I had a couple of days off because I was doing a game a couple of days ago, and then yesterday I did the battle report for that game. So when I was doing the game, I had to have all the cameras set up on the other side of the room, pointing down at the gaming table so my opponent could see everything. Ryan says, people are playing Universal Battle. Yes, they are. But Universal Battle is not great for battle reports because it's all lame and pixely and it doesn't look very exciting. People want to see miniatures in their miniatures games. So while it's fine to play to keep your gaming skills sharp, I wouldn't like it as a battle report tool, really. I'm much more interested in seeing actual miniatures on the table, and I know a lot of people in my audience feel the same way. Which is why I was putting it off so long. I was thinking that maybe, hoping for the best, the whole pandemic issue might resolve itself, but it seems like it's going to be dragging on for quite a while yet, so that's why I've set up the gaming table so I can facilitate webcam games and still take pictures exactly the same way as I would with my other games. Brian says I use an airbrush, speeds everything up. Well, this Shadow Hulk was airbrushed in purple, so that's going to speed a few things up. And I'm also using contrast paints and dry brushing a lot of the time as well. So it's not going to be a slow army to paint, in theory. It's just going to be a lot of models. And something like this is going to take a long time just because I've added so much nonsense to it. If it was just a standard giant, it'd take long enough, but it's got so much more detail that I've chosen to add to it. It's going to take a while based on that. But when it's finished, I think it's going to be worth it. And if it looks good at the end, I may end up trying to build a second one. Okay, I think I've been going about an hour now. 1 hour, 3 minutes almost. So I'm going to wrap this one up, but I'll probably be back around about the same time tomorrow. And I might have already finished the Hellvane by then, because the steps are very, very simple. I don't need to be showing you that. But tomorrow I would like to be working on the butchers, first 5 butchers, and maybe a bit of work on the Shadow Hulk as well. I think that would be interesting for people. So you can look forward to that, probably around the same time, but if it's not, then just keep your eye on my Facebook group and I'll announce roughly what the start time is going to be, or if you just keep an eye on my channel, then when I announce the live feed on there, it's usually a few hours in advance. So don't forget to check out the links in the description, especially my Facebook group if you're not a member of it already, which will help you keep up with everything I'm doing. And you can post in there if you've got anything relevant to my video output, or armies that I'm playing, or game systems that I'm playing, or anything you want me to just have a look at that you think might be interesting for me to talk about. There's a link to Twitter down there as well, and various fundraising sources for anyone that feels like sending me a slice of their income on a one-off or monthly basis in exchange for all the red hot, sizzling, juicy, mouth-watering, spicy, tender, delicious. Is that enough descriptions? That kind of content that's being shoveled into your mouth on a daily basis at the moment. If that's the kind of thing you like, then feel free to throw money at me so I can go swimming in a vault of gold coins at your expense. And apart from that, anything else to be said? Just looking around, anything I haven't mentioned? Oh, if my Vallejo paint rack arrives, I might assemble that live on camera as well, because that's bound to be exciting. Apparently it's a no-glue paint rack, which I'm very sceptical about, but we'll see. And Brad says melt in your mouth. Yeah, that's another one I could start using. Finger licking good as well. Okay, so I think all that remains to be said now is good night out there, whatever you are.